Hello everyone and welcome back to the Vocally Annotated podcast. This episode is all about how personal style isn't actually personal, and let me explain why. When people talk about finding their personal style, what they really mean is that they want to develop good style that feels authentic to them. The thing is, that's not an inevitability, but we can use different style theories and systems to break down how to develop great style. I've spent the last more than 6.5 years studying different style systems to develop my personal style, because my style used to absolutely suck before. And when I say it sucked, I mean that I didn't have one. I would see things on other people, like friends or celebrities or whatever, and think, wow, this person looks really good in that. And then I would assume that because I liked it on that person, I would like it on myself. So I'd go out and buy that thing or take inspiration. But then I'd wonder why it didn't make me look and feel as effortlessly magnetic as it made the other person look. And then I would just feel really shitty about myself. It wasn't until I actually understood style that I understood why I spent so many years feeling so shit about myself in this particular arena. That's why I'm cataloguing all the systems I've tried applying over the last 6 years. So if you're starting from scratch, you can develop your personal style without getting overwhelmed. I'll be evaluating them as I go along and tallying my final recommendations at the end, but the most important thing I learned isn't what you would expect. If you want some more background on my style journey, I did talk about that on my other podcast, OMG Spill, and I'll link that episode in the cards if you're watching this on YouTube and in the show notes on whatever platform you're listening to, so you can go listen to that. But for this episode, I'm just going to jump straight in and go through the 3 points I'll be talking about for each style system. 1, what is it? 2, how does the system work? And 3, did I find it useful? Now, disclaimers. This is not a bean soup friendly corner of the internet. This is what worked for me, my personal style journey. Take what works for you, leave what doesn't. And with that, let's get cracking. The first system we're going to go through is the body shape system. So number 1, what is it? The body shape system. I feel like if you are a woman who's ever read a women's magazine, or you've ever been a teenage girl who's read a teen magazine, you'll know what the system is. It's the one that categorizes women into like apples, pears, hourglasses, rectangles, bananas, I don't know, whatever else. Okay, it's the one that talks about women like fruit. The basic point is that you look at your proportions. So typically it'll say to like measure your bust, waist and hips, and then do whatever maths to calculate the ratios between all those numbers, and that will tell you which body shape you fall into. How the system works from there is to basically say that an hourglass body shape is the most desirable shape, it's the most like classically proportioned or whatever. So all the recommendations for the other shapes are to kind of mimic or bring in that hourglass effect, and for hourglasses it's to maintain what you have. For example, if you've got broad shoulders, then the recommendations will be along the lines of not accentuating your shoulders and instead bringing the emphasis to your hips to try and like bring the top bit down and bring the bottom bit out to create the hourglass. Do you see what I mean? So it was my first place to start to kind of understand, okay, what body type do I have and how do I address it? It turned out that I actually had kind of a distorted view of my body, and I was trying to follow the recommendations for the wrong body shape in that system until I actually took my bust, waist and hip measurements and I could actually see objectively what the numbers were. That worked really well for me to give me a more objective view of myself, but I also understand that that's not going to work for a lot of people, so do with that what you will. Did I find it useful? Not really, no. I think when people think about body typing, the first thought that a lot of people have is about the system, and that really puts them off any other, like exploring any other style systems, and I think that's very valid because I don't think the system is actually really particularly helpful for anyone. Alright, I'm sure there's someone it's helpful for, but it wasn't helpful for me. I personally really don't like that the emphasis is on trying to achieve an hourglass type effect, because like if you're not an hourglass, and if an hourglass is one shape out of 5, so like for 80% of the people who are gonna type themselves according to this test, you're just gonna feel bad about yourself because you're not an hourglass, because every other recommendation is trying to get you back into looking somewhat hourglassy, and that doesn't actually tell you anything about your body type or how to make the best of what you have, if like, especially if like you don't want to look hourglassy. It doesn't take any of that into consideration. And another big problem I had with it was that for example, under that system my body would be hourglass shaped. Okay, I'm 5'4". You know who else is hourglass shaped? Sofia Vergara. I do not look like Sofia Vergara. You can't give me the same suggestions and recommendations that you would give Sofia Vergara, because it's just not going to work in the same way. And so it was just continuing to play on the fact that like someone else could wear something and they would look great, and if I tried the same thing, then I would not look and feel nearly as fantastic. So it was building on that same feeling of insecurity that I already had and that I was trying to actively move away from, and that's why I started this whole thing. So the whole project wasn't off to a good start. I think it has some benefits, especially compared to some of the later systems I'm going to talk about. It's fairly easy to get into because all you really need is to look in a mirror or measure, like take your measurements and see how your ratios fit into the different body types. And that's not always going to be easy for everyone, but it is like a pretty objective, accessible way to get into the system. So like it's not completely useless, but I definitely don't see it as the most effective thing you could do. But I didn't stick with it for long, thankfully. So it was like a good starting point to dip my toe in the water because I was already familiar with it, because I'd seen it so many times in like women's magazines and teen magazines growing up. It was less intimidating to start with than, again, some of the more complicated style systems that I'll get into in a minute. But overall, was it useful for me? No. I don't follow those things at all. I don't listen to it anymore. The next system I tried was seasonal color analysis. So number one, what is it? Seasonal color analysis is a way of breaking down the tones in your skin, your features, like your hair and your eyes and all that, and categorizing them. First, depending on whether you're warm or cool, and then by breaking it down further into effectively how strong your coloring is in your different features. So whether you have really striking features because you've got a lot of contrast between them, or whether your features all blend together and are a bit softer, and categorizing those into 4 different seasons. There are different variants of seasonal color analysis. Some of them will split into the 4 seasons and that's it. Some of them will split into the 4 seasons, and then each season is subdivided into 3 seasons, so there's 12 total. And there's some where it's like the 4 seasons subdivided into 4 sub-seasons. So there's 16 different categories you could be put, like possible categories you could be put into. How does it work if you want to do it? So you can type yourself according to like what you read online, or you can go see someone and get your color typing done in person, which is becoming more and more popular online if you on TikTok and whatnot. I did it myself based on things I found online because honestly I found it very easy to type myself. I categorized myself as a textbook autumn and like smack bang in the middle of that season, so there wasn't really any ifs or buts about it for me to think too hard about. If you want to do it for yourself, there's lots of ways you can start. So for example, looking at your vein, I mean I've got mending on my arms right now, but if you look at your veins, and you can do that whole test to see whether you're warm or cool, also by looking at the different metals you like. Another good one I think is whether you look better in orange or magenta. Is a pretty effective way of telling whether you're warm or cool. Just seeing what colours you know you look good in and what colours you don't like on yourself. So for me, I absolutely hate myself in cobalt blue. Like royal blue, I look disgusting. I look so ill. I just look yellow and sallow and drained of life, and it's awful. But now I know why, thanks to colour typing. Like it's the completely wrong season for me. And so what you can do once you have your colours is you can buy little like shade charts that kind of look like the paint swatches, like the bits of paper you get at the homeware stores. What's it called? Like Home Base and stuff. Hardware stores, that's the one I'm looking for. The little paint swatch papers that you can get at hardware stores, and you can colour match things, so like clothes when you're out shopping and stuff. Or honestly, I use a lot of free resources because so many people have made free resources for this kind of stuff, so you can find different colour palettes and stuff to suit all the different you know, seasonal sub-variants. The most popular one is definitely the one that has 12 sub-seasons total. The 4 season one is less. I feel like it used to be more common like 20 years ago, and probably more. I mean, colour typing has been around since the 80s, so I feel like that's the one that still was hanging on from the 80s. The 12 season one is definitely more popular now, and the 16 season one is less popular from what I've seen. Like it wasn't what I came across 6 years ago, and I haven't seen too much on it since then. It's only if someone is really like, oh, this didn't work for me, and then they go and explore the 16 sub-season variant of seasonal color analysis that I feel like I actually hear about it. So number 3, did I find it useful? Yeah, I found it really useful. I used to dress a lot in neutrals in my early 20s, and when I started wanting to explore color, I didn't understand how to pair colours together. I didn't understand why my best friend, who is a completely different like colour season to me, looked amazing in some colours like cobalt, royal blue, and it made me look like shit. I didn't understand why, like I was talking about in the beginning, the things that looked effortlessly magnetic on her looked terrible on me. Seasonal colour analysis essentially helped me articulate why I gravitated towards certain colours and why I never wanted to wear other colours. Like I said, for me personally, I am a textbook autumn by my own typing, so I find the whole system really easy to use, and like there's not too much confusion there about what I can and can't wear. There are definitely some people who find the system more difficult to use, like for example people with an olive overtone, because it doesn't account for olive colouring. But since I don't have olive colouring, I don't have that problem. I really am, like, I just found it so easy to use in that respect. And then, like I said, because it's so popular and there's so much content about it online, it's been really easy to find things like colour palettes and different colour combinations that look good together, and use those to incorporate more colour into my wardrobe, because I know like what will look good with what. And now it feels more like second nature. But like that was something I really struggled with at one point. I didn't know how to wear colours because I didn't know what went with what. And the nice thing about having a seasonal colour palette is knowing that like every shade is going to look good with every other shade, basically. It's still something that I broadly follow. Like if you look at my wardrobe, it's mostly in autumn colours. But like right now, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, I'm wearing black. I'm wearing a long black dress and I feel great in it. Technically black is one of my worst colours as in autumn, so in that respect it did kind of like mess with my head a bit, because I wouldn't wear black for years, or I would avoid it so hard because I was like, well, I'm not going to look my best and this colour isn't good for me. And I think there is something in that. Like when I wear my black winter coat, because I'm so covered and it like comes up really high here near my chin and all the rest of it, it does make me feel like heavy and not my best self. And I think this dress is okay because it has a v-neck, so you can still see some of my skin. So I'm kind of like rediscovering the colour and figuring out how to make it work for me without feeling so like heavy and a bit drained. But the biggest takeaway for me is at least now I know why I feel that way. And I'm not endlessly comparing myself to someone who does look amazing in black and trying to figure out what's wrong with me. So do I personally find seasonal colour analysis useful? Yes, I do. The third system is the Kibbe body typing system. The Kibbe body typing system has become quite popular online and also quite controversial in the last like 5 years or so. So what it is David Kibbe is a stylist and he came up with his own body typing system that isn't like the Apple Pear one, whatever. Like back in the 80s, I think he lives in New York. So the Kibbe body typing system takes into account your bone structure, and it also takes into account how your skin sits on top of your bone structure. So do you have strong bones and then you tend to be more lean, or do you have like softer bones and you tend to be more soft in your body shape? And then it will also look at things like your vertical line, which is if someone were to look at you, could they accurately guess how tall you are, basically? Like if someone were to look at you and let's say you're like, I don't know, 6 foot, would they accurately guess that you're 6 foot, or do you look shorter than 6 foot? Or do you look taller than 6 foot? That's your vertical line in a nutshell. And then things like your limb length and whatever will play into that. And then based on all these things, you get a body type. And each body type comes with different recommendations, from haircuts to makeup to different silhouettes and textures and fabrics that would work with your body type. And Kibbe's whole thing was, as a stylist, he really based his original ideas on like the golden age of Hollywood film stars, and how they would always try to create this like persona and building that complete image, that holistic image. And that's kind of what he does with his own system. He has since updated it. He released a new version of his book just last year or the year before, but I haven't been able to read it, and most of the content that exists online, if you're going to read about the Kibbe body typing system, is about his system as he wrote about it in the 80s. How it worked for me is, I think I read the descriptions of the different types, and as soon as I read the type that I would say I am, I was like, oh, that's me. Again, I feel like a very textbook example of that type. When I tried taking a quiz, the quiz gave me a different type, and so that kind of threw me off for a while. I was like, oh, am I this type or am I the type I originally thought I am? But I was pretty sure I was the type I originally thought, so like the questioning didn't last long. And once I was happy with how I typed myself, which I also based on the recommendations for each type, and I was like, well, I already gravitate towards doing some of these things. It was similar to the colour analysis in that respect, like I already gravitated towards some of the colours, so it just confirmed and was able to articulate why I did those things, and it was the same thing here. Do I find the Kibbe system useful? I find it useful as a way to articulate certain things. I think it's very similar to seasonal colour analysis in that respect. Again, I would look at my best friend looking incredible in some things, or like other people around me or celebrities looking incredible in some things and be like, oh my god, I want to try it, I want to wear this kind of style, and I would wear it. I would borrow my clothes or my best friend's clothes, but when I put it on, I would not be giving off the same kind of effect that they were giving off, and I never understood why. And Kibbe was a way to articulate that. I remember initially, like the very first time I learned about it, feeling very restricted. It was April 2020, so as you can imagine and understand, it was a very chaotic time and everything was in flux. And I was up late one night and I found some Aliyah videos about the Kibbe system. I stayed up until like 2 a.m. or something, and by the time I went to bed, I mean, I was really tired, I was really stressed out, and I felt really like, oh my god, what are these restrictions this thing is placing on me? But I couldn't not go down that rabbit hole, but I wasn't happy with what I found in the rabbit hole. But then I woke up the next morning and I was like, no, you know what, like, it's fine. I don't know, I think I was really cranky that evening. I mean, it was 2 a.m. and by the next morning I'd accepted it, and I was like, well, all the things he says not to wear for my type are things I don't like wearing anyway, because I feel that they don't look good on me. So I'm not really losing anything here, and actually I really like the system because it's all about leaning into what makes you great and your body type great, rather than trying to make you fit this other kind of like classically beautiful mold, like an hourglass body shape. And that is one thing I really appreciate about the Kibbe system, is that he places such an emphasis on bringing out your own unique beauty and finding harmony with your features, rather than trying to fight them or trying to counteract them because they need to be more balanced. Like, you already have the balance, and you bring more balance by harmonizing with how you are in his system, and I find that really beautiful, and that makes me, like, in a way forever grateful to the Kibbe system, because it was the first thing I actually found where it was like, no, that is the end goal. The end goal isn't to like try and fix you. I know that people definitely have mixed opinions on it. I mean, for me, from reading the descriptions, I was like, oh, I'm a textbook this type, so it was really easy for me. But I know that that doesn't apply to everyone, and that trying to stare at your body to figure out like what your proportions are like is not great for everyone mentally. Tiffany Ferg did a really good 2-part series, which I will link in the show notes, where she was talking about her experiences with the Kibbe system, and she got 4 other YouTubers on to go through the whole Kibbe thing and give their opinions, and it's a very mixed bag. So it was really interesting to watch and get different perspectives on. And there are definitely valid critiques, but I think a lot of the critiques also come from, like, he's trying to achieve one thing, and not everyone wants to achieve that thing, and that's fine, but then the system isn't going to work for you because you're inherently at odds, which is like funny because like his whole system is about finding harmony, but like if you're not harmonizing with the system itself, then that's fine. As for whether I continue to find it useful, I find it useful to an extent. I feel like it's very much one of those things where I had to learn the rules and then learn how to break them. I definitely don't follow the rules perfectly now, but when I am shopping, it'll be like my first port of call is to refer back to like the Kibbe silhouettes. And if something doesn't work, I'm able to articulate why now. So that alone was a big win for me, and it's a really important running theme I'm noticing among these style systems, which is that like it's given me the ability to be able to articulate why something doesn't work. And I've noticed this when I talk to other people as well. Like if a friend asks me if something looks good on them or not, I'm able, if I don't think so, then I'm able to say why I don't think so, and exactly pinpoint what it is that doesn't work and what they could change for them to feel more at home in the outfit. And I think that's also like a big part of Kibbe, is that his whole thing is about like creating that holistic harmony so that you can create this like image, this persona. But a lot of people also ignore the fact that like for a lot of people that is how they feel good. Like harmony is seen as a good thing for a reason, because you feel at home in a certain garment or whatever, in a certain shape or a certain color, and that's what it truly means to feel effortless. I feel like the idea of being effortless is really misunderstood, and because nothing is effortless. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, looking good isn't an inevitability. It takes effort. Like in my case, it's taken me like 6.5+ years of effort, but the effortlessness comes in how you carry yourself and how you feel and how you move through the clothes. And if something feels completely like natural and perfect for you to put on, then you radiate that. Like if you feel really comfortable wearing saris, then, and wearing a sari feels no different to you than wearing tracksuit, then like you will radiate that effortlessness of just being at home in your clothes, and you're wearing the clothes and the clothes aren't wearing you. And that's like the huge thing that I feel like so many people miss, and I think we miss out when we miss that part of it. So yeah, I think being able to articulate why things don't work is a really huge thing that comes from understanding any style system, under being able to articulate like that particular aspect of it, whether it's like color or silhouette or whatever it is. But I still have the most important takeaway that I got from all of this yet to come in this episode. So the fourth system I tried is the Style Key, developed by Style Thoughts by Rita on YouTube. So what it is, first of all, is a system that takes into account your essence, as she calls it, like your vibe basically, and places you into 4 categories. The best way to kind of think about the Style Key is to think about your vibe and the vibe you give off. What the Style Key system is kind of hard to explain. Rita does have an explainer video on it that I will leave in the show notes. She'll place your vibe into one of 4 different quadrants, and within the quadrants there are also like sub vibes, but like the main thing is being put into one of the 4 quadrants. And when I say vibe, it really is that vague. It's about how you come across, how you carry yourself, how you like to dress and present yourself, like a bunch of this stuff that is largely intangible but distilled into your essence, and then that essence is then categorized into a quadrant. So if I had to like best explain it, the quadrants go from left, which is more like raw. I think that's the best way of saying it. There are other keywords she uses, but like if you go from left as being raw to right as being really polished, I think that's the best like 2 keywords you can, like individual keywords you can give to sum up each side. And then within the like left raw and the right polished axis, there's also the up down axis, which is like the energetic distance, she calls it, which is like up, which is like you're more distant, you're more unapproachable, more like keep people at arm's length kind of thing, whereas right is more like approachable, open feeling when you talk to someone. And then within each of these quadrants there's different ways to express that through your clothes and your styling. Like I said, it's kind of vague to explain. She has a bunch of explainer videos on her YouTube channel for this reason, and like I said, that'll be in the show notes. How it worked for me is that, again, I watched the videos and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm a textbook, this type. And then from there it was kind of easy, and I was following the recommendations for that particular type. There was a point at which I like, a lot of things were in flux in my life, and I was, you know, this was one of the things that I'd latched onto as something I could control, but then I felt like I couldn't control it and I didn't know what type I was, and I was having doubts about it. So I did book a consultation with Rita. So this is the only one of these style systems I'm talking about where I did book a consultation with someone, like the person who originated that system, and that was super helpful. It was like half an hour and she illuminated everything, and it was great, and I left feeling like so confident, no more questions about my type or anything. Or then the only question left was like how to execute it in different scenarios with different outfits. But again, she's made lots of content on it over the last couple of years, so it's been easy enough to get a base understanding of my type and what my type means and how I might like, how I should lean. If you were curious, in Rita's system she's categorized me as a sapphire, or like in the right up quadrant, and yeah, that's where I put myself at the beginning. I was like, oh, duh. So in terms of whether I find the Style Key useful, I really do. In one of her videos, Rita makes the point that like understanding your Style Key and your vibe might be more important than like particularly understanding kiwi body type or colors or any of these other things. And I can see the argument, like I can see that being true, because it's really about who you are as a person holistically, but without like getting into these nitty-gritty details that might get lost in Kiwi. One of the other criticisms I forgot to mention in the Kiwi section is that he'll suggest things to present a certain look for your body type, and it's like you might have that body type but you might not want to present that certain look. Whereas Rita doesn't make any distinctions about like if you have this body type, you can wear this to achieve this effect. It's more like, who are you and what do you just want to display at your core? I had to turn on the light because it started raining, so hopefully the lighting's alright. But yeah, I saw a comment that was left on one of her videos from someone saying that I'm a therapist and this is a really good system for me to recommend to my clients because it doesn't involve all this stuff that can, you know, lead to other issues and like build on body dysmorphia basically. Because it's got nothing to do with that at all. It's all about like you as a person, and I can definitely see that, and I would definitely say that this is the system that is the most like that. I feel like because it is a bit more like loosey-goosey in that respect, which definitely has its pros, it's less good at helping me articulate why something doesn't work. Like, I can say something doesn't work for someone. Like, if someone asks me an opinion, I could be like, oh, well, that's too left up for you, and you actually like write down. So like the reasoning works that way, but I can't articulate it in the same way that I could with Kibbe and seasonal color analysis. So in that respect, it doesn't help me articulate why something does or doesn't work as well. Then like I said, that's also what makes it more open for people to enjoy without feeling like they're being restricted or like it's prescriptive and that they have to look a certain way. I really feel like the style key system changed the game for me because I understood colors at that point. I understood like silhouettes and textures and stuff, but I didn't understand how to make it feel like me. I remember learning about Kibbe and feeling like, okay, I can achieve a Kibbe look, but I still don't feel like me. And understanding through the style key system that I needed to bring in more touches and how I could particularly do it to feel like me. I think it is also worth noting that like this is the only system where I felt like I had to consult someone, because it is a bit more vague and it becomes really easy to get like lost in overthinking if you let yourself. So having Rita be like the objective voice is really beneficial, but then you're relying on Rita to be the objective voice, and at the moment she's not even doing consultations. So if you were to get into this system and you were like, hey, I'm a bit lost and I'm open to spending the money on this consultation, you don't have that choice at the moment. And I think like getting lost in the overthinking spiral is exemplified by the fact that I felt like I was a textbook right up sapphire key quadrant, and I still, like, in a chaotic time in my life, felt like, oh, I don't know who I am or like where I sit within the system anymore. So I need to get guidance from Rita. So I definitely don't think it's the most like beginner friendly thing to use in that respect. Although I can also see how someone might find it beginner friendly because they're like, there aren't really like rules to learn as such. Like you just go off vibes, and I can work with like vibes and not having to like learn the rules. It swings and roundabouts. But I do still find it useful, and it's something I continuously refer to, and I might not check whether something works with my Kibbe type, or I might not like be consciously thinking about it, but I will consciously think like, hey, does this fit into my quadrant? Does this give the impression I want to give? Something else that contributes to this system perhaps being a bit more difficult to understand is the fact that because it's not prescriptive, it's harder to like, there's no, you know, list of silhouettes or like types of clothes or things or whatever for you to go off of. Rita does give recommendations in her videos, and I know she has some like resources you can access online that will help you with this. But if you're looking for someone to be like, here's what a wardrobe for this quadrant looks like and here are the basics you need, like this is not going to be the system for you. However, I think that the system does like work really well if you're interested in like psychological exploration, or if you're like into that kind of therapy vibe. It's very much like style as therapy, but without being explicitly style as therapy, if that makes sense. And so the more like introspective and reflective you are as a person, the more you'll get out of the system. And lastly, we come to the fifth system, which is the Style Route system by Ellie Jean Roden, who makes style videos on YouTube. The style routes are 8 types of styles that are based in nature, and the Style Route system basically says that everyone uses like 3 different types, and if when you find the 3 different types that you use, that's your like unique personal style blend. They're all different types of styles, and that's what the style routes represent. How it works as someone who's not had a consultation is that I have watched her videos on the different style routes to try and figure out what my style routes are. I've used the resources on Pinterest to try and like match, especially when I had questions about like, okay, I think I have this particular style route, but what are my other style routes that are associated with it? Because the whole thing, like as far as I understand it, is that you have like everyone has like 3 like I said, create your own unique blend to kind of figure out like, okay, if I think I have this style route, but what other style routes do I have that paired with that? Do these pictures kind of match my vibe? More or less. And that's how I've approached it. And to be honest, I haven't found it a particularly useful system. I just don't think it works for me, because my whole thing is that like traditional systems of like categorizing your style, or even less traditional ones like the TikTok cores like Dark Academia and Mermaid Corn, whatever the fuck else, are all about like a particular way of dressing or a particular like look. And I don't like feeling restricted by the look. And that is a really big thing for me, which is why I appreciate things like the Style Key, because it's got nothing to do with like your particular aesthetic. Because I feel like when I start talking about my aesthetic, I feel really boxed in, and I feel like I can't grow beyond that. And that was always a problem I had as a kid, when, you know, I'd be reading magazines and it'd be like, oh girl, what kind of style do you have? And it's like, I don't know. I don't fucking know. It makes way more sense to me to be cognizant of how I think about style rather than like what that particular style is. And from what I can gather from the style roots thing, that doesn't seem to be like, that's not what the emphasis is on. The emphasis is on the particular style, what kind of clothes you might want to wear if you have that style, and that kind of jazz. So for me, this is not a useful style system. And that is all 5 style systems I said I would talk about in this episode. I've been recording for a really long time, so I'm going to wrap it up with my final recommendations and then finally get into the biggest takeaway I got from all of this exploration about whether or not I think style systems are worth it. So I've got the list on my phone, and if I had to go through each style system, I would say body shapes, useless, like don't bother. Like I said, it might be good for beginners because you might already be familiar with it. It's somewhere to start, but like on the whole, I don't think it's nearly as like comprehensive as it could be to be useful. Seasonal color analysis, I personally find very useful. I think if you're someone who wants to like get into more color, or you really feel the impact of color strongly, I think is what would make seasonal color analysis good for you. For me, I feel color very strongly when it's like on my body, next to my face. I have to see it on myself, like it really has an impact on how I feel. So for me, seasonal color analysis is very useful, and I would say like that's the best kind of person who could benefit from it. As for Kibbe, I would say Kibbe is really good at giving you language to be able to articulate why certain things harmonize and why certain things don't. And like once you learn the rules, you can break them, and like the disharmony might be what you're looking for, but like you know the rules now. For me, I find that a really big, like I need to learn the rules before I can break them if I want to do anything effectively. Like just doing what I want doesn't work for me. I think that actually ties in very nicely to the Style Key system, because that's very much my type in that. Again, I think the Style Key system is really useful for someone who's willing to be like introspective and reflective. If you're looking for like a quick makeover or for more surface level advice, this isn't the system for you. But if you want to understand yourself better and be able to express that through style and really imbibe it, then the Style Key system is like the best way to go. So far, nothing else I've gone through on this list tops that. And as for the style routes, I don't understand how it would be particularly helpful, to be perfectly honest. It seems like a bit of a juvenile concept to me. Like it seems like the kind of thing I would have seen in a Groovy Chick magazine in 2003. But if it's helpful for you, then like cool. It's just not what I'm looking for, I think, and that's the main thing here. I don't feel like I have a particular aesthetic, or even if I do, I don't want to nail it down and use certain words to describe it. Like even within like Alison Bornstein's 3-word system, to me that doesn't work, because the idea of only using 3 words feels very restrictive. Even if 3 words are like objectively really easy to put to my style, it's not a way that like my brain works. What I care about is having a coherent style and knowing for myself that it's coherent and how to make it coherent. I don't need to be able to particularly articulate that coherency to anyone else by summing it up in 3 words or 3 style routes or whatever. For me, it's very much about developing the internal thought process, and I think that's why I gravitate towards the style systems that I do. And when it comes to figuring out what works for you, my biggest takeaway is that the style systems that work for you will be the ones that explain your insecurities away. I've touched on this when I talked about like the body shape, like the fruit body shaping, body typing system, where it's like it's trying to make everyone kind of fit into that hourglass mold. And what I really like about Kibbe is that Kibbe doesn't do that. Kibbe doesn't really give a shit if you're like pear-shaped or apple-shaped or like whatever. It doesn't matter what your body looks like in that respect. What matters is like bringing the features you do have out and using them to their advantage and building on your strengths basically, rather than trying to like focus on your perceived weaknesses and downplay them. So in that respect, the Kibbe system explains my insecurities away by not making them insecurities anymore. And I think that's the biggest thing for anyone to take away from this. That's just a particular example of my experience, but like my main point is that if you feel like not only has the system enlightened you, but also helped you to explain your insecurities away and make them things that you're no longer insecure about, then you're winning. Like that's it, that's all you need from them. Learning seasonal color analysis helped me understand why some colors look good on me and why the ones that don't work. That helped me not feel insecure anymore about the fact that those colors don't work and I can't wear certain things. I already gave an example for Kibbe, and learning about the style key helped me understand like what my strengths are and how I can show them, and like how to lean in to the things I naturally have that naturally make me beautiful. And that's been the running theme here. That's the overarching theme. I no longer feel insecure about the fact that like I just don't gel with certain styles nearly as well, and that's okay. And that is my biggest piece of advice. If you can walk away from it feeling okay and feeling less insecure, then you're on the right track. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it was helpful, and I hope it's given you another way to think about style and why style is important. And I feel like style is really easy to downplay in terms of importance, especially when you wear a style that like, you wear clothes, you don't really have a style, you just wear clothes that don't make you feel particularly good, but once you like wear something that really makes you feel good and you learn the difference, it can be hard to go back, and you realize that style actually has a really big impact on how you perceive yourself. I have been recording for absolute ages, so I'm gonna go. I have a dinner to get to, but I hope this was helpful. If you've tried any other style systems or you have any thoughts on the ones that I talked about, please leave them in a comment below. I'd love to hear them, have a discussion about them. And I will see you in the next episode, and have a wonderful rest of your day.